Well, thanks to my colleagues, and I want to thank Senator Schumer, who, when we first got this bill out of committee in the last Congress, promised me a floor vote, and then circumstances conspired against us, but his promise didn't have an expiration date on it. And he said when we started into the 118th Congress, keep working and we'll do this. The Iraq War resolution was passed in October of 2002. I was the lieutenant governor of Virginia, had no interest in being ever in the United States Senate, and certainly didn't know that I one day would be. At that time, I had no idea that my 12-year-old son, oldest son, would become a Marine infantry officer. But I listened to that debate about the Iraq War, and it infuriated me. It infuriated me that it was being forced on Congress right before a midterm election. The invasion didn't start till March. There was nothing about that debate that was sort of according to Hoyle. There was no reason it should be put into a midterm election context, but that's what happened, and it so angered me that when I eventually got elected to the United States Senate in 2012, I fought to get on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee so that I could work with colleagues to try to get Congress to take more seriously the grave responsibility in Article 1 that we shouldn't go to war without a vote of Congress. Iraq is no longer an enemy. You followed, Secretary Austin was there last week, a very productive meeting with Prime Minister al-Sudani to talk about the work we're doing with Iraq to continue to battle against ISIS and other non-state terrorist organizations, to check Iranian aggression, to promote regional stability. There's no reason to have a war authorization against a nation that is now a security partner. So after 20 years, it's time to repeal this and show again that Congress can exercise that Article 1 muscle. There's more to do in this space, but if we begin with this repeal and then hopefully with a good bipartisan vote, send a message that can gain some momentum in the House as well, where we have very broad bipartisan sponsorship, Congress can start to take back this power that is the most sacred one we have and that we should jealously guard. Let me now introduce my foreign relations colleague, who is a warfighter and a hero and a superb senator, the senator from Illinois, Tammy Duckworth.
Behind you here. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. You know, in 2012, I first started talking to Senator Kaine about this because as he was being sworn into the Senate, I was being sworn into the House and onto the House Armed Services Committee. And I wanted to talk about ending the AUMF because I think it is the best way that we can support our troops. Look, most people run away from battle, but our service members run toward it. They watch their brothers and sisters get wounded. They miss births and funerals, school plays and college graduations. Then they come home bearing the wounds of war, both visible and otherwise. They will always do their job, our servicemen and women, defending our country, no matter the sacrifice. So they deserve to know that they have the moral support and most current legal backing of this nation. But for more than 20 years, Washington has failed to give them that. One of Congress's most solemn duties is deciding when and how we send Americans into combat by debating and passing authorizations for the use of military force. These documents set the legal framework for military action that are supposed to define the mission for the Americans who are going downrange. But lately, too many in these halls of power in Washington have shrugged off that duty, hiding behind this outrageously outdated document. They've been scared of the political risks that come with bringing these wars back into the spotlight. They've been staring down election days. Congress has shirked its responsibility to our troops. For more than 20 years since passing these AUMFs, those in power have stretched and skewed their original intent. We've left our troops without a clearly defined mission, without clearly defined parameters, without an off-ramp. So now they face an increasing risk that a future commander-in-chief may improperly interpret the law to send them into future armed conflicts that this AUMF was never intended to authorize. Our troops deserve better than that. If we choose to send the finest among us into battle, then we need to debate and vote to do so based on current conditions. Enough of being more worried about political consequences than about our troops in harm's way. And until we muster up the courage in these halls of power to ask and answer the tough questions that will actually tell our troops what they're fighting for, we will not be living up to their sacrifices. Instead, we will be leaving them in an endless loop, refusing even to look for that off-ramp. Look, it really shouldn't be that hard. Anyone who claims the mantra of patriotism can't keep demanding such sacrifices from our service members while refusing to step up to our obligation, our responsibility to have a public debate and vote when we ask our troops to go into combat. It's time, it's long past time, that we repeal this decades-old AUMF and start honoring the troops in the way that they deserve, maybe with a little courage ourselves. Thank you.